We're talking about the Boston 10. This is my full review. Now, usually I like to do my full review after I've run at least 100 miles, but I kind of dropped the ball on this one. And right now, the filming of this full review, I have run 160 miles in this shoe, which is 257 kilometers. So needless to say, I've put enough distance in this shoe to really understand what it's all about. Now, if you've been looking around for the Boston 10, you might have seen some other reviews. I'm not going to be all negative Nelly on the shoe, comparing it to the Boston 9. Now, Adidas has recently done a sweeping change as far as the aesthetics of their shoes go. And the Boston 10 got a complete makeover from the Boston 9. It is now a far more substantial shoe. So if you ran in the Boston 9, do not expect the same shoe in the Boston 10. Now, Adidas does claim that this is an up-tempo trainer, and yes, it works well as an up-tempo trainer, but there may be other shoes that are better. But hold on, we're gonna get to how it feels on the run in just a second. Let's go over a few specs. The Boston 10 has 39 millimeters in the heel, 31 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. Men's US size 9 weighs in at 10.4 ounces or 294 grams. However, in my size, US men's size 13, the weight goes up to 12.7 ounces or 361 grams. So it's not light, but it's certainly not an elephant. And it feels on foot a lot more nimble than the weight suggests. The Boston 10 costs $140 in the US, 130 pounds in the UK, which isn't bad. I think it's a little more expensive than some other comparable shoes, but still saying that, after wearing it for the last 160 miles, I think $140 or 130 pounds is a good price to pay. Just to throw in a little foreshadowing of this video down the line, these shoes are gonna last. We have a very well padded heel collar, which adds to the comfort of these shoes, making them more like a daily trainer from the look at how much padding they've got around here. The heel counter is fairly stiff. Can't really press that down with my hand. But then, in an almost contradiction to how much padding we have around the heel collar, we have a very thin tongue. Now, the tongue does have some padding right on the top, and it's thin enough just to stop the laces from biting into the top of your foot when you cinch them down. With that said, the lockdown is excellent. I didn't have any problems with any hot spots across the top of my foot, and I definitely didn't have any heel slip. Now, the Boston 10 has kind of like a booty-like construction where you slide your foot in and you kind of slide your foot into a sock, but it's not a total booty like other shoes. It's almost like the tongue is gusseted, but gusseted to the extreme. Because if you put your hand in, you can kind of move your hand around the gusset and bring it out the other side. It's very difficult for me to explain what that is, but it's kind of like a cross between just a normal gusseted tongue and a booty. Either way, it's very comfortable. Lockdown's on point. Adidas is using a dual layer mesh. They're also using their prime green technology, which uses 50% eco-friendly materials. So, you know, you're not trashing the environment by wearing these. Now, when we think about breathability of a shoe, obviously a single layer mesh, a single layer material is going to be more breathable than a dual layer mesh. And because it has a dual layer mesh, it may not be the most breathable shoe that you've ever worn. However, for what this shoe is, I find it to be breathable enough. I was never uncomfortable. I never felt like my feet were overheating. But when you compare it to a shoe with a single layer mesh, you can tell the difference. We have these suede overlays on the front of the toe box. They just kind of reinforce the toe box. And I actually think it looks pretty good. Although I've got to say, these suede overlays probably add a little bit to the weight. And we've got some suede accents just around the eyelet chain at the bottom here. Now, the midsole foam, that's the money maker in any shoe. Adidas is using a mixture of two foams. We have the Adidas Light Strike regular EVA foam on the bottom, and then we've got the Light Strike Pro, a layer right between your foot and the Light Strike. Now, before this year, Adidas used their Boost foam. As we all know, Boost is getting a bit long in the tooth, and it's good that they replaced it with these two foams. Now, the Light Strike Pro, that's a pretty epic foam. It's nice and soft. It is their top of the line foam. This EVA Light Strike on the bottom, it's a little stiffer, but because it's stiffer, it's more resilient. And let's be honest, when we're buying a daily trainer, an up-tempo shoe, as Adidas might call it, we want a little resiliency. We don't want to be replacing our shoes that we use for our everyday runs every couple weeks. Bad enough we have to do that with race shoes. Now, even though we do have the Light Strike Pro along here, when you reach your hand in, you know what? I question how much Light Strike Pro is here in the heel. It almost feels like I can reach down below this layer, which means it's probably just Light Strike Pro. It's been stuck on for aesthetic purposes here. However, there does seem to be a lot more of it here in the forefoot. And we're gonna discuss that when we talk about ride in just a second, but let's just talk about the outsole. The outsole is a continental rubber. It is extremely durable. And after 160 miles, I have been very impressed with how much wear I have on these shoes. Now, I do see some wear, especially on the outside of my heel, where I tend to heel strike when I'm running easy. But other than that, on my forefoot, it's very minimal. And overall, these shoes are holding up pretty well. Now, the Boston 10 does have these 5 plastic rods that are running inside the midsole. And on some of their higher end shoes, you're gonna get carbon fiber rods, but these are just plastic. Saying that, they actually perform pretty well. As in, I think I notice that the rods are doing something for me when I'm out on the run. But with that, let's move on to performance and the type of runs that I have been using these shoes for. Let me just start by saying that the Adidas Boston 10, it's marketed as an up-tempo daily trainer, and that is where it performs best. But it's much more a jack of all trades type of shoe. I have found that I have been reaching for this shoe more often than not. Now, I do have a lot of running shoes and I try to rotate between all of them, but on my normal daily runs, where I'm just going out to run easy, not quite recovery, that's a little slower, but my easy runs. So the bread and butter, most of my week's miles are at an easy pace. I will quite happily reach for these Boston 10s all the time, and they perform well. They also perform very well when I include strides. So oftentimes I go out for an easy run, I lose strides at the end of my run. The Boston 10 does perform better at speed than it does at slower speeds. Now, of course, we're all different. We all have different foot strikes, we have different gaits, and I know that when I'm running fast, I run more efficiently. I strike more on my forefoot. Now, recovery days, my form is just a mess. I'm heel striking all the time. On easy days, if I think about it, I can still midfoot strike. But when you pick up the pace, when you start going a bit faster, we all run more efficiently when we run faster. And this shoe takes advantage of that by including more Light Strike Pro in the forefoot. We've also got these plastic rods that start about here and then roll up through the forefoot, kind of tracing our metatarsals. So you can utilize all the technology in this shoe by picking up the pace. And that's why Adidas calls it an up-tempo trainer, because the shoe was designed to be running more efficiently. And most of us run more efficiently when we're running up-tempo, when we're running faster than an easy pace. Although I found that this shoe does perform well when I'm going out, I'm running intervals, when I'm doing those strides at the end of easy runs, I've still found the Boston 10 to be incredibly comfortable when I'm running easy. And that's why I've been reaching for it, along with other shoes like the Pegasus 38. I guess ultimately, when it comes down to it, I'm very pleased with this shoe. Now, I'm not comparing it to the Boston 9, I am taking it for what it is, judging it by its own attributes. And it's a very comfortable shoe that I've enjoyed putting a lot of miles in. However, the Boston 10 almost seems like a contradiction in running shoes. It works best when you pick up the pace, and it works okay when you're running at an easy pace, but it's just a little too heavy to be a shoe that picks up the pace, even though you don't notice the weight when you're picking up the pace. What I'm trying to say is that to me, it has been a daily trainer more than an up-tempo shoe. Now for me, when I'm going out and I do a tempo run, when I'm running intervals, and it is a specific workout, I know that there are paces that I need to hit. I'm going to be reaching for my Puma Deviate Nitros or my Saucony Endorphin speeds. Those are shoes that just fit better as an up-tempo shoe. The Boston 10 works for that, but for me, I found it is just as much at home running fairly easy. I really enjoy running in this shoe. It is a shoe that I choose to grab when I'm going out for a lot of my runs. Now, just like all Adidas shoes that I have worn in the past, it does fit true to size. Whatever size you normally wear, buy that size in this shoe. And of course, I will put my Jackrabbit affiliate link in the show notes below. Go ahead and check them out. But I want to know from you, have you run in the Boston 10? Let me know what you think. Ideally, let me know what shoes you think it compares to. I'd really like to know a shoe that you think is better, and maybe shoes that you think don't perform as well as this shoe. If you have any specific questions about my experience running in the Boston 10 for the last 160 miles, 257 kilometers, write them in the comments below too. My name is Matt. This has been my full review of the Adidas Boston 10. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.